Thank you.
Okay, thank you, agriinformation.com, and especially Rajni ma'am and Dhanlakshmi madam. So it's been a great day. I'm sorry I could not give you time the other day because I was on tour. So I just came from tour yesterday itself, and now we take. See, now two, three things are there. Why should farmers conserve the germplasm? See, suppose a new variety is developed by a plant breeder, whether it's in horticulture or agriculture or anything. Now, who are the custodians of this particular germplasm which is going to be used? See, for example, the NBPGR, the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resource, which is at Delhi, and then it has various branches. And then we have the Agriculture University system where the Director of Research and most of the plant breeders will be having the germplasm. That is called as the breeder seed. Now, the breeder seed is maintained by the breeder or the particular institute, and then further, okay, they are going to license it, let us say, to Mahiko or some other company, and then they start producing the seed. So the breeder seed now become what is called as the certified seed. See, now let us say IAHR gives Arka Rakshak variety to Mahiko as a license. So some minimum license is going to be charged, and at the same time the Mahiko is going to further multiply the seed, obviously keeping the isolation distance, the parents and so on and so forth. And finally, the variety is now called as the certified seed. Now, what this Mahiko will do, or the plant breeder of IHR or anybody will do, they will give it to the Seed Corporation of India or any other things. Now, the certified seed now becomes what is called as a truthful seed. Then they will further give it to some private players. They will give it to certain farmers to multiply it. At that time, it becomes truthfully labeled seed. I think if you get these three or four things, we will continue our lesson, because this is mostly dealing with how farmers are involved and how people should be able to evaluate the different germplasm or the seed or a cutting or a. See, for example, the germplasm can be conserved in two ways. One is the ex situ germplasm, the other one is the in situ germplasm. Ex situ germplasm means keeping in cold storage the different pollen grains, okay, keeping the ovaries, freezing them, okay, and you know the famous double fusion, triple fertilization, which is a very fundamental thing to any plants, okay, and how the seed set and the production takes place. So now all these are called as ex situ. That means they are kept in a cold condition or under some chemicals, and so that the germination is arrested, and as and when required, okay, seeing the dormancy period and all, it's coming out. And basically, we have three types of crops coming up: the Kharif crop, the Rabi crop, and the summer crop. The Kharif crop is a rainy season crop which comes between June to October. Okay, and at the same time, 1 minute. At the same time, just a minute. Uh, okay, at the same time, we have the Rabi crop coming in the cold season, and then we have the summer crop coming between February to May. But now, why this different seasonality of crops, and what was the actual reason for having these sort of crops? Many times the farmers may not know. Okay, now what the breeders have done is they have tried to remove the photosensitivity, and they have made it photo insensitive. That means any crop can be grown in any season. See, otherwise, in the winters, the days are shorter, okay, the nights are longer. In the Kharif, the days are longer, the nights are shorter. In the summer, the days are very, very long and the nights are very, very short. And especially when you go to the equinox, when you go to the summer solstice and the winter solstice, for example, we say Iceland, where the sun never sets. So these are all some variational aberrations where the breeding and the germplasm, we have to be very careful in conserving them. For example, if I ask you how to conserve the very famous kesari, okay, saffron. Saffron, the pollen and the pedicel part of it, okay, especially when I say the anthers and stigma. That anthers and stigma is dried, and that is what is becoming saffron. and from each flower only one style and stigma is available. That has to be dried. Okay, after fertilization, you cannot dry it. It does not become saffron. So if some entrepreneur or a farmer is there and he wants to come to the saffron business, he should definitely know how saffron breeding is there. What is the planting, how to conserve that crop, how when to plant. See, all these sensitivities, we can do it. Every time, he should not come to the scientist, that saffron scientist who sits at the Central Institute of Temperate Horticulture at Srinagar. So that person sits there. So every time he need not do it. Therefore, what the ICR and the Agriculture Extension has done is, we have tried to develop a battery or a big army of farmers who become very proficient in this sort of plant breeding. They are also going to, conserve our species. For example, if you go to Rani Bennur area, there, especially hybrid vegetable seed production area. So in hybrid vegetable seed production area, you have a male parent, you have a female parent. So we have an isolation distance of, let us say, 200 meters. And then the breeding is going to take place, and then we are going to bag all the, we will emasculate the female flowers, and then only we keep the ovaries over there. And then we are going to bag it, and further with the desired pollen, we are going to cross it. So that becomes my hybrid seed. So, but now how to teach these techniques to the farmers is a $1 million question, which is actually our topic of today. So that's about myself. And okay, so we quickly go. See now, for example, this is white mucuna and black mucuna. See, why we use this particular thing is, we use it as a green manure crop. See, the black one is suitable for certain soils, the white one is suitable for certain soils, but the farmers do not know the difference between the black and the white mucuna. So we should teach them when to preserve this, how to preserve this, okay, and how to plant and all these things. So next, the germplasm conservation is a multidisciplinary approach in the sense, so how to select the genetic material, okay, how to select the saffron things. So there may be a long stigma saffron, there may be a short stigma saffron, or rice or whatever. We have to teach the farmers how to identify them, how to select them, and how to hybridize and how to store the seed. Now, when a new germplasm is selected, the germplasm should be evaluated and tested for the production and markets. I am giving you an example of saffron breeding and saffron marketing. So now, when we are going to design effective production of low-cost planting material, see, a planting material should not become very costly. See, now in any hybrid tomatoes, for example, in hybrid tomato, if somebody wants to cultivate hybrid tomato, the seed cost, just hardly 2 or 3 grams of the seed will cost you a lot of money. So how he can make it? Then elite germplasm and clean production practices. So this is how the entire system is going to work. And everywhere, after the Biodiversity Act of 2002, Farmers Act, Seed Act of 2005. Now farmers can preserve their own seed, but only thing is, a hybrid seed he cannot preserve because he does not know the parents and how the emasculation is done and what are the male and female parents. So now, even if he learns this particular thing, he can also keep his seed and he can sell it also. But only thing is, he cannot use the name of Mahiko or Monsanto or some other company's name. He can sell it without the labeling and bagging. So this is a fundamental thing after the Farmers Seed Act of 2005. So now, how are we going to train these different farmers? There are 648,000 villages in this country. We have big farmers, small farmer, marginal farmer. And if we take the BT cotton, I was just giving an example to the Director of Research just now, before this meeting, he was here, I was discussing. For example, the BT cotton, the patent is there with Monsanto. So that gene is called the MON 531 gene. So similarly, ICR has also come out with certain varieties called as the Bikaneri Narma. Okay, there is also a cotton variety which is resistant to the BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, bollworm. Okay, bollworm is actually this in the silk industry. Okay, the cotton bollworm, Helicoverpa armigera, belongs to the Bombyx mori, that silkworm family. And now one important pest used to attack the silkworm. That was the BT. BT means Bacillus thuringiensis. It is a bacterial agent. Now, Bacillus thuringiensis, being a bacteria, attacks the silkworm. So the scientists thought, why can't we introduce this BT gene into cotton? See, cotton is a plant. Okay, that for example, Bacillus thuringiensis is a microbe. So one belongs to phylum Protista, the other one belongs to plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. So therefore, once when this particular gene was introduced, okay, the same action, okay, like, Bacillus thuringiensis attacks the silkworm. In that case, Bombyx mori, if it attacks the silkworm, it won't molt at all and the cocoons will not be formed and the silk industry has a lot of problem. But the same technology, when I use it on BT cotton, and if I use it on the cotton bollworm, that is Helicoverpa armigera, okay, it becomes resistant. It almost kills the insect. So per acre, people have calculated that there is a net saving of 2,500 rupees per acre. So therefore, the BT gene transplantation is an important thing. But now you will ask me another question, whether the BT cotton can be preserved by farmers. Okay, whether the such seeds can be preserved. No, because BT cotton has been produced with some biotechnological tools and there is always segregation in the next generation. Therefore, the Monsanto which produces the BT cotton seed always has got the monopoly to keep the seeds. Similarly, when we talk about Bikaneri Narma, okay, these seeds can be preserved by farmers. They are also resistant to the bollworm of cotton. See, because why should farmer every time and now and then go to Monsanto and buy these seeds? Because Mahiko has a license to sell the BT seed. So every time farmer should not be able to afford the cost or will not be able to go to the agency and buy, because the seed cost in cotton is more than 50% to 60%. So when the seed cost is so high, the farmer cannot have a break even and the cost of cultivation becomes very high and therefore he will lose. And you must have already seen that many cotton farmers commit suicide because whenever the bollworm comes, okay, he is to spray all sorts of pesticides, okay, which are, okay, they're all general type of pesticides, they're not specific, and then finally he loses. So therefore, this participatory germplasm conservation or the farmer producing his own seed, okay, preserving them and selling them is the topic of today. Now, we call them as the organic seed systems. So the farmers today, they also have their local knowledge, and at the same time, the extension system and the research system of ICR or the universities are helping our farmers to identify, conserve, and document the local varieties, and they're also doing participatory varietal selection. See, for example, now, in the Green Revolution, that was the antithesis. See, because in the Green Revolution, the technologies were very input, okay, the productivity is coming, they are input friendly, okay, they are input sensitive. That means more the input you put, more the yield you get. But today, when I talk about organic seed systems or when I talk about participatory plant breeding, a very hot topic in extension, we want the present varieties to be climate sensitive and not input sensitive. It should adapt to the environment. That is what this natural farming, okay, paramparagat krishi, they are all aiming at. And today nobody wants to eat any crop or a seed or a vegetable with a lot of pesticides in it. So now we have made it no GMO, genetically modified organisms should not be used because of biosafety issues. I'll give an example. See, now, just like we had BT cotton, IRI came out with the Indian Agriculture Research Institute, where I had my PhD, came out with the concept of BT brinjal. Then the DBT, Department of Biotechnology, put a lot of objection. They said, why do you want a BT? There also Bacillus thuringiensis is there. Okay, now people in cotton, we don't eat cotton because it becomes a fabric and you wear a jeans pant and all that and just you're off. But once when it enters the food chain, see the BT gene may become very toxic. Okay, there are suspicions that when you use this genetically modified organism, you can even become sterile. You will not have issues. So you might be subject to cancer. Okay, you may be subject to AIDS, or you may be subject to, that means you will become very vulnerable to various, medical problems. So therefore, they say no GMOs, and the BT brinjal did not get the certification to do it. But nevertheless, when GMOs are not used, even with a small selection, see, after all, in brinjal, I don't think you require a BT or a genetically modified brinjal. I said there are so many varieties of brinjal. We have the Mangalore Gulla, we have the, Guttankai, which is a round black thing. We have the Eringere long, the greenish brinjal. So we have many variants of it. See, and obviously, let me tell you one thing about brinjal, because I work at IAHR. Okay, Solanum virum, is a crop which is used for the anti-fertility drug. So long back, Dr. R. Krishnan used to work in the medicinal crops. So now, this brinjal is also belong to the same family, Solanaceae. For example, potato also is Solanaceae. Okay, then we have chilies coming from the same family, Solanaceae. So Solanum virum has this anti-fertility drug in the skin of the brinjal. Similarly, when we use GMOs, or what will happen is, the solacidin content which is there in brinjal is an anti-fertility agent. So now I am not making you afraid that don't eat brinjal and you fellows will become anti-fertile and you will not have children. So therefore, friends, whenever I am going to use this genetically modified organisms, I should be doubly careful. And farmers are the best judge to preserve these sort of germplasm, especially different varieties of brinjal, different varieties of potatoes, which are suited to the local condition. For example, in Simla, you are having a Pahari aloo they say, which is a whitish potato. See, and most of you, when you grow potatoes in Hassan or in and around KR-Pet Taluk also, we have a lot of potato gardens, and potato is basically a rabi crop. See, what grows in the very cold season only becomes that beautiful potatoes for your Frito-Lays, chips and all that. Other potatoes, the small ones, become yellow in color. Therefore, we say the potato germplasm predominantly by CPRA Shimla, Central Potato Research Institute Shimla, which has come out with Kufri Kuber, Kufri Jyoti, and many of the Kufri series. So they all have to be conserved from where that particular variety has come. There may be certain variety which is suitable to Hassan district. Hassan district is predominantly a potato belt in Karnataka, and at the same time, all the Gaudas who are situated in Hassan will also have a house in Ooty, because Ooty is the seed production center for potatoes. So therefore, the germplasm conservation is a community-based concept. It is a climate-based concept. It is a region-based concept. So all these things, if we train our farmers, they can preserve our varieties and definitely not burden the NBPGR or go to the plant breeders every now and then and purchase the seed. So we want to eliminate and release our farmers from the clutches of the seed chain and seed supply chain and the seed value chain. So therefore, participatory plant breeding becomes an important exercise. Okay, just give me the dustbin, ma. Where did it go? So therefore, friends, then next we go institutionally production and distribution. See, today we have a lot of, Today we have a lot of community seed banks are there. We have a lot of farmer producer organizations who have become community seed enterprises. We have farmer service centers for local production and distribution. So today, around 10,000 farmer producer organizations we have been working in all horticulture, agriculture, seed, spices, and so on and so forth. So we have done open source seed licensing arrangements that facilitate and preserve freedom of access. See, now, suppose if Mahiko is taken a license to produce our Arka Rakshak, So he will not give you the seed. So this open source seed licensing, we have now started giving many of our varieties to the farmer producer organization, especially the OP varieties. OP means open pollinated varieties. So open pollinated varieties can be given. See, suppose it is a CP, close pollinated variety. So that means in close pollinated variety, every time you have to do the emasculation, maintain a distance, and then afterwards you have to take a small brush, okay, something like this, which I'm showing you. Are you able to see me? Yeah. Are you able to see me? This brush?
Yes, sir, we can see you.
Yeah. So in the close pollinated varieties, you'll have to do something like this. Okay, I'm just not. Okay. What? Dan, can you set the camera by? Just come here. Yeah. So you'll be using a small brush like this, and you'll be, after the emasculation is done for the female parent, you just set the camera. There was some issue. Okay, you just, yeah, tighten. Okay. Fine. Yeah. Bus. No. Something you did. 1 minute. No, that IHR should not come. Okay, right, leave it. Okay, so therefore, this open source seed licensing, okay, once when this is done, anybody should be able to take the seed and preserve it. Okay, then creating value for diversity. For example, Kerala boasts, a lot of our spice research institutes are all situated there. Okay. Clove, cardamom, nutmeg. Okay. And now I heard that, in some of under the Center of Protected Cultivation, you can even preserve your saffron, cultivate it and all that. All high value crops, okay, we should do local germplasm conservation, promote the farmer producer organizations, promote the farmers groups, and creating value for diversity. See, now the Green Revolution, the only problem in Green Revolution was it is a highly monocrop. Puttu, why am I seeing this reflection here? Just can you come here? Jayant, can you please come? I'm not able to see my face. Why is it? There's something here. What is it?
You can stop your video, then restart it. Maybe it will sort out the problem.
Okay, shall I
yeah,
stop?
You can stop the video. Stop the video, just video.
Only video? Okay, I will stop. Okay. Just stop video. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, fine. So I'm able to see myself. So therefore, creating value for diversity means developing, processing, value addition and products to increase. So for example, in and around Bangalore, Chennai and all that, 3 high value crops. Many of my students have worked on these 3 crops. One is the broccoli, the English cucumber and capsicum. These are in very high demand throughout the 365 days. Everybody wants to eat it. But unfortunately, because of seasonality, we are not able to process. But definitely, there are germplasm which are also suitable for Kharif, Rabi and summer. Or if not that, I'm going to raise a protected cultivation, a greenhouse or a polyhouse, where all my relative humidity, temperature, okay, all things I can control through the IoT. In IHR, we do have one of the systems. Okay, I have those slides somewhere. I'll show you. No issues. Many of you would have seen. So therefore, today the farmer is able to not only identify, not only conserve, not only have a varietal selection without the question of GMO and using only the organic seed hub. Okay, not much difficulty, especially when you come to the OP varieties and the closed varieties. In case of OP varieties, openly pollinated varieties, nobody can claim patent for that and Monsanto cannot put a case on you. But in the closed pollinated varieties, especially in case of BT cotton, what they do is the MON 531 gene is inserted, of course, obviously using the Agrobacterium tumefaciens and all that. And that's how that particular MON 531 gene is integrated into the cotton seed. And that's how you get the hybrid cotton, BT cotton seed, which is a little complicated process, which farmer may not be able to do. Or we can teach him, but the Monsanto company does not allow us to make participatory seed conservation because they will lose money. Because in many of these case of this hybrid varieties and big players like Monsanto, There is big money also there. But what the ICR wants or what the government of India wants is, especially in the Biodiversity Act and the Seed Protection Act of 2005, we want farmers to conserve their own seed and not waste much money and bring out diversity and create value for diversity and be happy and able to market the seed also, obviously without any label. See, we don't want farmer to put his name, Mahiko, no need of any name. He can have the varieties and all that. So that is how the participatory germplasm conservation takes place. We have to raise the awareness. We do a lot of the Green Foundation, which does a lot of awareness. We go to all the villages, our plant breeders, extension workers like me. We go to the villages, we do a PR, a participatory rural appraisal exercise, and then we are going to tell them what are the varieties, how to conserve them. So we obviously will be using a satellite map, okay, a participatory GIS. I used to take a class on this participatory GIS, and then we will tie up with the geotag. That means a particular seed is available where in Ooty. Why that Ooty potatoes are very famous, and it might have a different flavor. Okay, like that, we will geotag each and every variety or the germplasm, and we want the Soliga tribes in Ooty. For example, the Soliga tribes speak a language which is very similar to Kannada and Tamil. When you mix it, you get that Soliga language. So those tribes are very, very vehement and very, very participative in preserving the Ooty potatoes. And as you already know, that Ooty is the place where potato seed production takes place. So many of these sensitivities are there in agriculture and horticulture and so on. Then why participatory conservation? See, suppose, I think Rajni ma'am may know more about Tamil Nadu and others also. See, now in Ooty, there's a particular habitat which is hosting, let us say, 25 varieties of potato. That only the tribal people will be knowing. See, every time you can't expect the plant breeder who will go from the Potato Research Institute. Of course, in Ooty also we have a CPRA substation. Central Potato Research Institute is there. But they might not be able to identify all the varieties which are germplasm available in Ooty. It is only the Soliga tribes who are the custodians of that particular germplasm. They know about all the varieties. They might be having a preservation method. Either it is in situ or ex situ. And a lot of habitat degradation is taking place in and around Ooty. I'm just giving an example. The same is true in other places as well. So a lot of people are coming in to build hotels. I think even Mithun Chakravarti has a hotel in Ooty. So like that, when the habitat is degraded, the varieties are gone. So then introducing a non-native species. For example, in Ooty, let us say a potato from SIP, Central Institute of Potato, International Institute of Potato Research Center, which is somewhere at Lima, Peru. Okay, it's in South America. Some varieties may be imported from there and also might have been put in Ooty. We don't know that. Then commercial hunting and poaching, okay, all this population growth and environmental degradation, poverty, all this will ultimately erode our germplasm, native or American or Lima, Peru or the international one. So although the CGIAR group, the consultative group in agriculture research, has got some 7-8 stations. We have the wheat and maize at CIMMYT, Mexico. Then we have the International Potato Center at Lima, Peru. So like that we do have, but they alone are not responsible and they are not sufficient to maintain. See, suppose a new variety of potato is there in Ooty. Definitely, it is a farmer's variety. It's called as a participatory variety. We are going to give credit to our Ooty farmers. We will already there is a Upasi in Kunur. Okay, it is a Tea Producers Association. Maybe we will also establish one more FPO to preserve the potatoes of Ooty. So similarly, a pollution may be there, climate change is there, ecosystem disruption. All these are, one institution cannot take care and preserve the species. Therefore, we want our farmers of the 648,000 villages, especially the tribal population. For example, if you go to Kerala, lot of, this, Kottakkal Vaidyashala. It's very famous in, especially our medicine. They prepare a lot of lehyas and all that. Ayurvedic treatments are given. So, but who will, for example, our, his name by Patanjali Foundation. So Baba, is coming out with different lehyas and He comes out with Dantakanti and whatever. So all these are coming from the Himalayan germplasm which is there. So even a small medicinal plant, or it is an aromatic plant or an anti-cancerous plants are available in the Himalayan belt, in the Deccan Plateau, and in the, especially our tropical rainforest in South India. So our Sahyadri. So all are there, and all these germplasm, okay, are conserved by the farmers. And with the guidance of the scientists, the extension workers, they are going to conserve. Very, very important concept. See, why I chose this particular topic was, I used to talk only about marketing and all that. And I thought that, our audience, especially from the agriinformation.com, should be aware that what is the rich biodiversity India has, especially with respect to the germplasm. It may be flora and fauna. Okay. Flora means all plants. Fauna means all animal germplasm. See, for example, our sea turtle, okay, which is coming in Veraval, Gujarat. I was in Veraval, for example. On the way, when you go to Dwarka, you have this marine marine species exhibition. It is on the seashore. So all our marine species and turtles and tortoise, turtle basically, there's no tortoise because tortoise is land-based, and all the fishes in the Arabian Sea coming in that particular Gulf of Kutch. Okay, they are all preserved in one exhibition. Okay, it's a beautiful thing to watch. So many cane fish may be there. You have a squid, for example. Squid is a highly 100% exported one. All that they do is they remove the head of the squid and then they're going to do the RFD, rapid freeze drying technique. I was in Veraval and seeing this. So definitely I had not seen a squid myself, although I have trained so many students in agri and fisheries. My students are there. The squid, what they do is as soon as it is harvested from the marine environment, it will have a small head. It's a mollusk basically. Okay. Simply they remove the head and the eyes of the squid and they subject it to rapid freeze drying. And this is a very high value squid which goes into the European market. So even the preservation should be less than 15 minutes. So there are more such sensitivities, gentlemen, both in the flora and fauna conservation. And definitely farmers might have some lot of ITKs, the indigenous technical knowledge. But definitely when the ITKs are combined with the scientific knowledge, the scientific rationality, Dr. Supe wrote a very famous book on rationality in decision making among farmers. Whether farmers are rational or not, yes, they are very rational. The old grandmother of mine was more rational than me. See, I have only learned some MScs and PhDs and MBAs, and my knowledge might be superfluous. See, even today, the pickling technique or, the germplasm conservation techniques are written in Atharvana Veda. See, you have the 4 Vedas. Let me mention to you again here. The Rig Veda is all about how to do pujas and build temples and the Vastu and all that. Okay, the Yajurveda is full of how to prepare a bow and arrow, how to prepare a sword, what are the fighting techniques. They are called the Yajurvedis. The Vedas can be practiced by anybody, okay? He need not be only Brahmin, he can be practiced by anybody. But Yajurveda tells only about the arms and how to fight, okay? Samaveda, the Samaveda is full of agri-business. It's all about your PGDM, how to run a business. Okay, even Chanakya, when he wrote the Niti Shataka and then Chanakya Artha Shastra, it has been a lot of excerpts, EXCERPTS. They have been taken from the Samaveda. The Atharvana Veda is, come on, it's fully an agriculture textbook. So we used to tease in our agriculture college, you bloody fellows, even today people say that the Germans who came out of the zero tillage concept, okay, the Jethro man who comes from the United Kingdom. So all these agronomy practices have been taken from our Atharvana Veda. So even there you find a chapter on this participatory germplasm conservation, how our old sages and the farmers, because I'm not saying farmers are dull and only sages are intelligent. It may be Parashara or it may be whoever it is. So both of them is to combine and they used to preserve the seed for the next generation. That's how, of course, the population might not have been so big as today. So they might have conserved the species, and that's how the germplasm has passed 1 to 1. See, even the golden rice. Okay, there was a place in Raichur, This was long back in the Raghavendra Swami days, in 16th century. So that particular rice is used to put Naivedyam to the Lord, God. Okay, it is nothing but the golden rice. It's a highly biofortified rice. So you might have a biofortified jawar. But many of these small ideas and concepts we might have lost because of urbanization, because of rapid urbanization. Okay, removing uh, the especially the environmental degradation might have led to this. So therefore, in my opinion, the participatory germplasm conservation to rejuvenate the species, to reintroduce the species, to bring out the lost species. See, who knows, out of millions of plant species, maybe one or two seeds may only be available in Mexico. Or one or two, I was in Ghana, for example, that's a totally cocoa crop. My father was a professor in University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, and so many cocoa varieties have been preserved by the Ashanti tribe. Ghana has predominantly three tribes, the Kumasi tribe, the Ashanti tribe, and the Accra tribe. So, there the marriage concept is totally different. One tribe can marry the other tribe, anybody. But, just like we see all the Gotras and all that. So many such local knowledge do exist in germplasm conservation. We should be very, very sensitive to that. Utilize it. See, today I heard that the IIMs are coming out with Bhagavad Gita as a management textbook. Definitely it is there. See, when they say that Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya, there's nothing but about the veto power. See, when everything fails in management, the director or the boss or the CEO is going to take a decision. So similarly, how to control the anger. This is what Krishna said. See, today there's a whole course on anger management. Similarly, when you go to the Atharvana Veda or many of this participatory germplasm conservation, there might be a small one or two seeds of some very highly biofortified golden rice, which can solve all the malnutrition problems of India. It can solve all, for example, the biofortified bajra. Recently with Harvest Plus, we had a variety called H1000. So this was by Harvest Plus. And definitely, see, don't underestimate our farmers or anybody. Even a selection of a local variety with a, for example, bajra, you should have something like normal bajra has got about 40 ppm of iron. Okay, the heavily fortified bajra H1000 is having about 80 ppm of iron. So now there are so many such highly biofortified crops. You need not take any external supplement. See, Dr. R.B. Tiwari tells me that, fortification can be external or it may be inbuilt in the crop itself. See, now we are coming with a lot of ananas, okay? We are coming with Arka Sahan. Or can't we biofortify our fruits and vegetables? See, why should people take more supplements? So, in the olden days when a pregnant woman is there, she was given some specific varieties of mango. And, all these Telugu people used to shoot that movie and say, లేదు అమ్మాయికి అదే మామిడి తినాలని ఆశ ఉంది. It might not be only eating mamidi because she may be getting some of her nutrient and vitamin supplements for that, which are absolutely very good for the pregnancy, and maybe the progesterone and the other hormone levels were under control. So many of these sensitivities, gentlemen, maybe you and me may not know it today, but there is a lot of deep thinking when farmers conserve the species. Even today, there are so many ITKs, especially, the placenta has to come out. See, once when a lady delivers a baby, the placenta has to come out. In Ayurveda or something, they give a mixture of garlic, chili, some tamarind, one very specific thing is made. It is made as a lechia, it's made as a ball. The moment you give that, the woman will deliver the placenta outside very coolly. See, otherwise, if some portion of placenta is stuck up in the womb, but she will have all this. See why all this uterus cancer is coming. It is because some of these ITK methods or what were those particular species, people don't know. See, I have seen, when my brother was born, something was given to my mother. It was a mixture of all these things. And my mother was hale and healthy, and of course she passed away. So today's gentlemen, most of the people, either they have breast cancer or they have, uterus cancer. Why is it happening? Because the local germplasm, which has been used to, for this lactating mothers or for the this woman, has been lost. That means we have lost that indigenous technical knowledge. So therefore, it is high time that we conserve some of the species, bring the ITK back together, Even our ethnic cuisines, many times our ethnic cuisines are fantastic. Why, there are, what is it? In Telangana, I used to eat some ulava charu. That's one thing is there. Then one more is there. It's a mixture of tamarind, chili, and all that. It's a very, chala ghatuga untadi. That means very pungent. So all these things are taken as appetizers, and that's how they used to improve their digestion. I forgot that name. Not ulava charu. There's one more. It's taken as an appetizer before you eat food. Anybody from Zahirabad can tell me this. It's called, it is a raw mixture of tamarind, chili, okay, jeera, hing, and garlic. Okay, they make a small juice out of it, and predominantly taken by the non-vegetarian eaters. If you drink that little, even if you eat the heaviest non-veg, it digests. Of course, a vegetarian guy like me should not take because it burns your stomach. So it adds toxicity to your gastric juice, which is again hydrochloric acid. And so many such ITKs that I can go on telling, and unfortunately, our time is short. So then we introduce them to varietal. See, we go to a village, you see all the farmers sitting here, participate in varietal selection. We do this organic seed treatment. Okay, and then we involve the self-help groups and the farmers groups. Okay. Then we do matrix ranking. See, this is on the PRA exercise I used to teach for my scientists. So we want farmers to rank their local seeds for yield, disease resistance, and even any ethnic cuisines to be done. Puttu, what is that called in Telugu? That cow's first milk is taken. Adem peru? Telugu lo ade idra first. Junnu, yeah. Junnu means, for example, the first colostrum milk of the cow, which comes after it does this, after it gives birth to a calf, it is given to that to increase the disease resistance. And that Junnu is also sold. Ikkada Junnu amma badunu, like that they will be telling. Okay. So that process of calving is called as parturition in veterinary language. Micturition means urination. Parturition means, giving birth to a calf, and the same thing is fed. See, how did people identify? They didn't have microscopes and all that. But everybody knew that, if the Junnu is given to the young child, it will improve the disease resistance. See, why are women getting breast cancer? Tell me. See, they are getting breast cancer because they don't feed their child. See, I've seen, especially, some of the children, my own daughter was feeding on the mother for 3.5 to 4 years. Then one day we said, no, you have become a very tall girl, and stop the nonsense here. Stop it. So therefore, see, of course, working women and, those who are in the cinema industry, and then those who are beauty conscious. So if you are so conscious, don't become a mother at all, I'm telling you. So if you are so conscious that, you want to eat everything from oats and from America, not the Indian jonna or the Indian ragi, okay, that's your will and wish. I am not forcing. But I am telling you, even today, the local germplasm has got a lot of demand, especially this is the year of millets. Okay, Chirudhanyala Samvatsaram antamu. Okay, lot of, see, why are millets important? Let me tell you. See, you might not know what is navade, what is sajje, and, foxtail millet. So my grandmother used to prepare this paisam out of this foxtail millet. Even today, I'm telling you, my dear diabetic patients, okay, even I am a diabetic patient. See, nowadays, I don't eat rice. I eat all sorts of things, okay, whether it may be smileys or it may be some other thing which are difficult to digest. I directly eat groundnuts, little. It's a high protein. Groundnut will not digest so fast. Similarly, eat our millets. Today, Bisbedabad is done through using foxtail millet. We happen to eat it in Gangavati. I think you were there. So when you eat all these millets, the glycemic index is very low. Slowly it releases glucose into the blood. Obviously, your sugar is under control. So suppose you take direct Coke, Diet Coke, okay, heavy smileys, jab tak samosa mein rahoge to alu tu meri darling ho chalu. Now, there was a very famous song of Govinda like this and Ravina Tandon. So therefore, friends, the year of millets, Modi ji has already told, it lays emphasis on one thing. See, how many of you know that how many types of millets are there? Of course, my friend has become the director of Indian Institute of Millet Research. I was at NARM, the next institute of that. Dr. Matsudan is today the director. He took charge. So therefore, our millet conservation, which has low glycemic index, and which requires a lot of local knowledge and lot of extension. Let me tell you. So my student Sangappa Chillarge is there at the Indian Institute of Millet Research. That fellow is promoting all the millets through the farmer producer organization. Especially we've been working through Koppal and other places. So therefore, every knowledge need not be with scientist gentlemen. Just because you have a PhD and MBA doesn't mean that you become a Paramagnani. I say Jnani, Vignani and Agnani. There are three types of fellows. The Gnani is the fellow who has combined science and experience. He is called as a Gnani. Okay, Mahagnani is much higher. Vignani is the fellow who has done only a PhD. Yeah, and he has only learned and got some degrees. Yeah, bahut dhanyavad. Okay, milte hai. Puttu, just go and send them off. Yeah, I had some visitors, gentlemen. So, so therefore, millet conservation today, Modi ji and this government year of millets को declare किया है. So कभी-कभी हिंदी में भी भाषण करना पड़ेगा. So we have to, we have to conserve. And all knowledge is not with us. Our farmers have the knowledge. Like I told you, Vedas, Vedam Apaurishaya. You might purchase one Rigveda book. Okay, of course, all the verses and shlokas are there. But still, these are all abridged versions. Some other knowledge may be there hidden in the farming community. See, especially there are so many farming. I was in Haripur tribe in Dehradun, in Himalayan valley. My goodness, there are so many varieties you might not find in your botanical textbook. So you have to identify them. You have to conserve them, preserve them, multiply them. That's exactly what Patanjali is doing. Kotakal Vaidyashala is doing. Okay, all your Ayurveda practitioners are doing it. Okay, and I think we should also do it. And we should not have this, that holy cow syndrome. I am a scientist of the ICR and then, I am a big man. So whatever I say is the variety. Come on, bring knowledge. They say that knowledge can come from all the Ashta Dikpalaka Bandhana. That means from all the 8 sides, knowledge can come. Knowledge can come from a Shudra, from a Brahmana, from anybody. So don't be hesitant to take knowledge from the poor farmer thinking that he's a low educated guy and he does not have a PhD. Therefore, I don't take knowledge from farmers. Who told you? He has a lot of local wisdom, gentlemen. So respect knowledge. Knowledge alone has to be respected. The method alone has to be respected. See, today that orthodoxy of I am a big man has gone. See, nobody is a big man. You may look big and your salary may be a bit fat, but if you lose one small germplasm of a millet, which can solve the entire diabetes of this country, it can solve the cancer of this country. See, 2 things, cancer, AIDS and diabetes. My goodness. People are searching, okay, see, somebody is insulin dependent, but there may be certain rice which has low glycemic index. Probably, I don't know, because once when I brought the IR20 series of rice from Philippines, when Dr. Swaminathan was the director of the International Rice Research Institute of Philippines, we introduced the IR gene into our Green Revolution in 1965. Okay, that may be a high glycemic index. For example, even the wheat which we have imported from Mexico. Okay, Norman Borlaug got the Nobel Peace Prize. Actually, Norman Borlaug is a forestry graduate. Okay, it doesn't matter what graduate you are, but the moment you have introduced the species, no, there was one WhatsApp video, I don't know whether it's fake or not, just to quote a reference out of that. Okay, I'm just telling that the present wheat, or we have the kokum wheat and the durum wheat. We have 2 types. When we do the haploid and double the chromosomes, you get this sort of wheat. So it is high in glycemic index. The moment you eat bread or whatever, of course, brown bread has come, and today Domino's or Subway, they ask you, sir, you want white bread or brown bread? So we are only interested in the fiber part of the bread. We say, give me the bread which is more fiber. That is only for your good digestion and vitamin absorption. But what about the glycemic index? Does it release glucose instantaneously? See, PPBS, that means postprandial blood sugar. That is after you consume food, within 2 hours when you check your sugar. See, now normal blood sugar patients, 140 decigram should be the sugar per deciliter of blood. So now if somebody is having more than 140 at any point of time, that is the RBS, the random blood sugar. That means you're a diabetic patient. And your fasting sugar should be not more than 105. Okay? For good healthy persons, you take the blood sample anytime, even after food. 1 hour, 2 hours. It should be 140. If it crosses 160, that means you are a diabetic patient, you are vulnerable. Of course, don't tell about the diabetic patient. The moment they eat food, it will run to 250, 400, and sometimes, the glucometer shows error. it does not show any reading. So therefore, today it's high time that we identify certain germplasm with low glycemic index. I told you Navadhanya, I've been telling you all this year. See, why are our tribals more healthier than the other fellows? Why are the African tribes more healthier? Except they have AIDS. And obviously AIDS was also introduced by America for testing purpose. And even today, the hybrid fellows who come out of Africa and America, Americans may be intelligent. Of course, Indians are the most intelligent, but of course, our germplasm, when we take the phenotype and the genotype structure, we are not so good. But look at, there's another combination of South India. I think all my students sitting here will agree with me. The South Indians are supposed to be more intelligent than the North Indians because of inbreeding. Okay, because of the allelic genetic combination. Okay, people marry their sister's daughter, people marry close relatives. These fellows become more intelligent. So now, even through our food systems also, with our local germplasm of Navadhanya. Navadhanya means 9. Okay, normally they say, when Lord Krishna, we give him the Naivedyam. So we use Navadhanya seeds. Okay, it may be foxtail millet, it may be pearl millet, it may be so many other things. You see all the Navadhanyas put here. And this particular payasam. So Ramanama ka payasake, Krishna Nama Sakkare. There was a very famous song like that. So all these are aiming at only the low glycemic index, gentlemen, and people, even farmers, are conserving, collecting. And look at this broccoli, especially coming from UK, a lot of fantastic conservation and highly climate resilient and climate sensitive. Similarly with other varieties also. Okay, there are so many cases of Nirman, which is one of the NGOs where a lot of promotions are going on. Indigenous rice, millets, etc. And they also process it, that they do training, capacity building, organic certification, mobilizing and organizing farmers, and the circulation of local seeds. So Nirman organizations work with Farmers Collective and Farmer on a convergence mode. And there's also support from the district administration. The Varieties Relevant Act, we have already told. No GMOs. The Seed Act of 2005, the Biodiversity Act of 2002. Okay, then farmer varieties, land races, PPBFRA has come in a very big way. Okay, we have a seed chain. I told you about the nucleus seed, breeder seed, foundation seed, certified feed, and truthfully labeled seed. I'll not be explaining again. And farmers' rights on seeds, the BDA or the Biodiversity Act, the plant protection of varieties of farmers' interests. Okay, we have all this. Then Department of Biotechnology coming with the GMO acts and so on and so forth. And this is a farmer-based approach to conservation of germplasm. I'll just leave it here. So only the summary of what could be told is, we should have an institution framework, especially AVRDC, NBPGR. We should have a big data, information-based network data coming from ACRIP. ACRIP means All India Coordinated Research Improvement Trials. Any variety has to be released. We have a germplasm conservation and the data. So any variety will be having low glycemic index, high adaptability, high yield, high disease resistance, and so on. Biodiversity, IPPFRA. And at the grassroots level, extension workers like me and you, NGOs, FPOs, and CBBO, cluster-based business organizations, have been striving hard and struggling hard to do this sort of conservation. Ultimately, we are only augmenting the efforts of the NBPGR or the AVRDC or any other thing through farmers' participation and the 648,000 villages and about 80 million farmers. So we are even in participatory varietal selection, you have a mother-baby trial layout. See, that means farmers are conducting this trial. See, they would have also put certain trials, just like you have treatment, control, and 4 varieties with 5 applications. So all those things they are tried, and they have a data ready-made, and they have both in situ and ex situ seeds also considered, and they will be helping the plant breeders of IAHR or the NBPGR, and they will also be doing. So 3-4 steps, especially, we have on Kamalam variety, we have a dragon fruit variety on Sidhu jackfruit, which is a typical case of participatory conservation. Actually, Sidhu jackfruit is a farmer's variety from Tumkur. So we helped them to identify, release and maintenance, sales and promotion, marketing and monitoring. So this is how we conserve our bioresource. Okay, we'll have a field gene bank, we have a wild species, wild relatives, land races, traditional varieties, all are put. Don't think only people with a lot of computer skills and who can use a mobile phone is the most adaptive species in the environment. I quote a quote from Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin said, okay, it is not the mighty of the species which is going to survive. It is the organism which adapts to the environment only is going to survive. So you might have these organisms, both in situ and ex situ, have been told, both on-farm conservation, gene sanctuaries, national parks, biosphere, I've already told you, both fauna and flora conservation in the cryobank, DNA bank, in vitro gene bank, and seed gene bank. So all this, the Grameen Academy is one thing which helps in all this participatory conservation. It's a case you can go through their website and do it. Quality assurance, organic integrity, natural farming, supply chains. So all these should be integrated. Today you should integrate organic farming, natural farming. You should also include Dasparani, okay, then neem-based pesticides. And, we use cow urine with Datura leaf, the Annona leaf, and the neem leaf. And, you make a paste of it, and 1 liter should be diluted in, about 200 liters of water and sprayed as a pesticide. Brilliant. The urine should be fermented. Fresh urine is very toxic because it has got uric acid, which may burn your crops. So fermented urine will have urea, NH2CONH2. So therefore, gentlemen, we have the Sahaja Aharam Producer Company, which also does this germplasm conservation, cell food. Okay. Then we have a Center of Excellence of Agroecology at Vijayawada. Okay, adaptive cropping patterns. So today, the farmers' interest in land races is coming because they have invested huge money in pesticides and all that. And virtually in case of BT cotton and other crops, they have lost their homes, they have lost their livelihoods, they have lost their lives also. So gentlemen, we don't want this to repeat. And even local knowledge and diversity has to be respected. It may be Yemen or it may be cassava, it may be Africa. Everybody has got their own species and they are all climate responsive and locally sensitive. Yeah, come Chandan, this is the class going on in participative plant breeding and how the extension workers are going to organize the 6,48,000 villages and 80 million farmers to conserve the species, because today we want all our germplasm to be climate sensitive and not input sensitive. Because the input sensitive was there in the Green Revolution, but the climate sensitiveness has come now. So PPB and CBB cost benefit ratio, look at this. In a community participating breeding program, the CPB, the traditional. PPB is participative plant breeding. Okay, the commercial plant breeding, the cost benefit ratio is only 15:39. So that means whenever you involve farmers and do this participative plant breeding through the farmers, it gives a higher benefit than the cost, which is a very important slide and which gives an impetus for our today's session, which is going on. So Article 6, sustainable use of plant genetic resources, especially the government of India has put certain laws and conditions. So participation of farmers, particularly adapted to social and other things, should be included. We need to promote, because we should be having sustainable use of plant genetic resource. So therefore, conserving plant genetic resource, I again repeat in this session, is not the job of only breeders. It is the job of farmers, you, me, a citizen journalist, and the society at large. And farmers have got more stake in these varieties, because it is those people who are going to apply these varieties and bring an evergreen revolution to you and me. So friends, farmers' rights also has been put in the Article 9. Okay, the sharing of benefits. See, suppose if Monsanto company is there, they should not eat away all the benefits, because a farmer has developed the variety and they will put a label of Monsanto. I'll give you an example of Bawal Research Station. I was there about 10 years back. See, normally the mustard, I think you have seen the mustard. The mustard is a fruit which is called siliqua. Normally only 1 row of mustard will be there. But here a farmer had found out a mustard which is having 2 rows of mustard. So that was directly doubling the farmer's income. If 2 rows of mustard are there in each mustard fruit, it's called a fruit. Siliqua is the fruit. So therefore, the CCS HAU, the Chaudhry Charan Singh Hisar, Haryana Agriculture University, collected this particular seed and they have released it as some CCS HAU 153 or whatever. But lot of share benefit has been given to the farmer, and farmers are promoted to develop this sort of mustard. Especially, mustard, you have 2 varieties. One is the sarso and the other one is torai. Tora is used for giving tadka. Okay, vagarne kodadike. Okay, sarso is used to create oil. The mustard oil comes in sarso. Of course, you should be careful with Argimon mexicana, which is going as a mixture into that, because the Argimon mexicana also looks similar to sarso, and then you have contamination, and the people should be very careful about it. So this is how farmers' rights are protected. Okay, the United Nations General Assembly has come out with seed policy, right to food, and agrobiodiversity. Okay, the seed policy should be friendly for the farmer to keep his seeds. The right to food is the right to you and me. Okay, a private company should not become a takedar. It should not become a controller of these seed varieties. Farmers should be able to control agrobiodiversity. Agrobiodiversity, the right should be given to the farmer and the communities, and organizing the communities through participation is the job of the extension workers like you and me. Okay, so friends, I can go on. There are so many levels of obligation, because see, all this participative germplasm is giving access to food. It is to protect the right to food, to fulfill the right to food. See, nobody, as Swaminathan said, nobody should die of hunger. Okay, if you have less education, it does not matter. You will work as a laborer, or I will work as a taxi driver. Everybody need not do a PhD. But you cannot deny me the right, because I'm born in this world, that I starve from hunger. So that's why we say Dr. Swaminathan got the World Food Prize. He's a champion of the poor. So anybody who helps the poor to fulfill his basic necessities is not just as a champion, he's like Lord Krishna. That's why he says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge. Wherever injustice is done, for the normal man, he cannot access food. Three things are there in the Human Development Index, gentlemen. Okay. One is income, education, and health. Everyone, whether you are big, small, which community, everybody should be able to access some minimum income. Of course, we are not asking you to stay in a 10 crore property or a 25 crore car, BMW and all that. Minimum food you should get, minimum education you should get. And, especially deadly diseases like diabetes and AIDS. Okay, the UNESCO has come out with various schemes. And, we do not want these diseases to prevail. So therefore, friends, even the participative plant breeding, which gives right to food, okay, protect the food, fulfill the food. See, after all, just because a lot of plant breeders are coming, why should you and me die of diabetes? See, can't you bloody fellows come out with a solution and produce a low glycemic food for me? I should be able to feel. See, today, most of the diabetic patients, they take insulin, they take blood thinners, and they almost starve. They are afraid of eating. The moment you eat something, the sugar is shooting to 400. So why don't you give them low glycemic foods? They are available in the germplasm. I'll promise you and tell you. Of course, this one session is not enough to convey those things. Low glycemic foods are available. It is now for you and me to search it and reinvent and put it. Maybe under 10 years from now, you might not have diabetes. You might not have AIDS. And cancer may be long gone. So all these are there in our food systems, gentlemen. And therefore, Rajni ma'am, do I have under 5 minutes? I'll conclude. Rajni ji? Hello?
Yes, please.
Yeah, 5 minutes I'll conclude. I'm just
Yes, please.
sorry, because this topic was taking a large,
Sure.
because divergent issues are coming in this topic. So we need 5 more minutes, just one. Okay. Yeah, sure. So there are so
Sure,
many
sure,
obligations. I'll leave this slide with Rajni ma'am. She will give it to you. So a lot of research, extension, farmers, the convergence, we say on a PPP mode. That means public-private partnership. Another P is added called the Panchayat mode. See, today, why have we put all the FPOs? Why have we put the CBBOs, the cluster business organizations? Why are we putting farmer first? Just operate the phone. So why are we putting farmer in the center? Especially we have our farmers first project. We put the farmer in the center because he is the person who knows how to conserve. He is the person who knows how to produce. He is the person who knows how to do value addition. So all these things are there, gentlemen. So these are the photographs where all people did not. Some NGOs, look at how many millets this fellow has put on his hat. And all the local seeds are concerned. Like that, we have similar organizations in Mysore. They have preserved more than some 100 varieties of paddy. All local-oriented paddy. You have golden paddy, you have golden rice. You name it, they have it. You have high glycemic index, low glycemic index paddy. All those things are available. So quickly concluding, farmer at the center. So let us use their efforts. Let us use the local knowledge. Let us use the wisdom. and come out with low glycemic, disease resistant, okay, and then biofortified crops. This is how, and it should be climate sensitive. Today, we do not want only input sensitive. That's why in the natural farming, when Modi ji's campaign of the Paramparagat Krishi has come, we want our varieties and crops to be climate sensitive, climate resilient, and not just input resistant. Today we don't want. See, I'm telling you, 350 million metric tons of horticulture, 348 million tons of agriculture. I can tell you, even without inorganic fertilizers, we can have this production. It is only how we change our farming system, Dashparni, or we have the ZBNF, zero-based natural farming. We have many concoctions. Even our IHR has come out with one Sasya Poshak, which we are going to use in the RKBA project. Today, I saw some intents given by Raja Shankar. I just forwarded it. So, gentlemen, these are some of the quick conclusions, and we'll have more conclusions when we go into the question answer session. This is how people are conserving it, both ex situ, in situ, and all that. So I stop sharing the screen, Rajni ma'am, and then we can open for questions. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir, for the very detailed presentation. Now I'll quickly take up some questions. Okay. So, how do farmers actively participate in germ plus conservation, and what motivates their involvement?
Fine. It's a very $1 million question. See, normally we thought that farmers are interested only in the money part of it. This was the earlier adoption models and diffusion models. When the Rogers wrote his book in 1983, The Diffusion of Innovation, that was the concept. But today I am telling you that farmers are not only oriented towards the profit, they are also oriented to their health. And today if we see the farming community, they have less diabetes as compared to you and me. So now the awareness has grown both from the city side and from the consumer side and the farmer side. So now the urban consumers are producing these sort of awareness campaigns, giving them money and asking them to produce these organic foods. See, I think today you go to any supermarket, there is a very high demand for organic foods. Am I correct? So therefore, all these are triggered by the premium prices fetched for the organic crops or products or low glycemic products and highly biofortified projects. And this is triggering a very important high demand for farmers to produce it. That's why, most of the farmers, especially we call them as the premium farmers. They may be even small marginal. They're using only organic inputs, low glycemic wala seeds, and they're producing. There is a lot of money also in that. Don't think this, all this participatory germplasm is going without money. There's a lot of money in that.
Okay. Can you highlight specific examples of successful participatory germplasm conservation projects led by farmers?
Yeah. See, for example, the Sahyadri Farmer Producer Organization, which is situated in Maharashtra, and I can show you even the Koppal. We had 4 FPOs. Okay, the Kanakagiri FPO, the Amritavarshini FPO, the Hire-Sindogi FPO, and the Kukunur FPO. So I myself was a partner in this particular experiment. We had a project from IFCO. So where we were promoting this biofortified bajra. I told you normal bajra has got 40 ppm of iron, and the biofortified bajra is having something like 80 to 85 ppm of iron. So this was a boon for the lactating mothers and the pregnant women. See, normally when somebody has this iron deficiency, they have a swollen foot. The foot will become very swollen. That's called the edema foot. So therefore, this particular exercise, what we did was we did a PRA exercise, and then we gave the seed free of cost to the farmers, and we also had a buyback arrangement for them, and we gave them a Krishi Devgyan app, okay, and then we have also given them AWS, automatic weather stations. So, and we put an extension worker there, one Krishnappa Vaddigeri. He was a 10th standard pass. He had some BA degree. We trained him in how to run the automatic weather station and what to run. I myself used to give weekly messages. That's called the IFCO Kisan message, which is broadcasted in 7 languages. Of course, I used to tell in Kannada. So all these messages were also told. So there's a back-end support, there's a front-end support, both from the mobile app as well as this extension worker situated there. And then finally, when the bajra crop came with about 80-85 ppm, then the local market in bajra for Koppal was just 2,200 rupees per quintal. So we arranged a buyer for 3,500 rupees per quintal. That person was in Lucknow. He was a biscuit manufacturer. So they were trying to actually use this bajra both in the poultry feed and especially for the pregnant and lactating mothers. They were trying to develop some biscuit. I think you have all eaten this Treptin biscuits. So Treptin biscuits is a highly proteinaceous, biofortified vitamin sort of biscuit. It used to be very costly. So when my brother was a small child, I used to steal it from my mother and eat it. so such products are made, and this is one of the live examples. Just see the phone, ma. Yes, Rajni ma'am,
Okay.
I have answered.
Yeah. How can participatory jump?
Yeah. Yeah, speak. Yeah, tell me. Tell me,
Yeah.
the voice broke.
Yeah. How can participatory germplasm conservation contribute to the overall biodiversity of crops?
Oh my God, this is the actual premise on which we have talked.
Okay. No
See,
problem.
now
Yeah.
all the efforts were stray efforts. NBPGR on one side, the State Germplasm Conservation on one side, the Agriculture University on one side, the ICR institutes on the other side, the Krishi Vigyan Kendra on the other side, and the local institutes on the other side, and NGOs and FPOs were all doing. But today, when these acts have been passed, when we have legalized the process of participatory germplasm conservation, today all of these people come under one umbrella. See, for example, if you are from the FPO and I am from the ICR, they don't allow each of us to duplicate what we did. Today, it is all complementary, integrated, dovetailed, synchronized effort by which the germplasm conservation is going to go tenfold. It is going to 10 to the power n. Okay, that means n is the number of players, and that many actors. So it will multiplicate exponentially. That is very important here. I think I made the things. Yeah. So therefore, today's participatory germplasm conservation has added an impetus to us in the sense that the whole germplasm conservation for the glycemic index or the biofortification or for the disease resistance or for anything which we are already suffering will be achieved faster. See, for example, during Corona time, we had to develop a vaccine within 1 year. Okay, our Krishna Yella, who produced from Hyderabad Biotech, he got a Padma Bhushan. So similarly, scientists and local workers and farmers, if they work together, you can get the solution faster. See, can't we get a solution for petrol and diesel? Already the electric cars have become the future. Okay, for example, the battery charging of the mobile batteries. Okay, one of my cousin brothers who holds a PhD from Stanford, okay, and then he has a startup. See, what he's doing is the mobile phone backside, he paints it with a carbon composite, okay, which can charge everything from solar in minutes. And you need not charge and put a separate wire. Then wo jhanjati chali gayi. So therefore, new innovations like this are coming in participatory germplasm as well, so that the solutions to what I told, especially diabetes, cancer, AIDS, and all that, is achieved faster. And then we help the humanity with this sort of science. Therefore, ICSAT slogan, science with a human face, is going to be achieved. Thank you.
Okay. Next question is, are there notable benefits of success or success stories where farmers have played a key role in preserving rare or endangered plant varieties?
Fine. See, I think you saw that there was a movie, this Rishabh Shetty only, not Kantara. Before that, there was a movie called Hero. See, even today we thought they eat the pigs. They don't eat pig. That's called a wild boar. Wild boar is a separate, it's a very herbivorous animal. Unlike this pig, which is actually, okay, it is, you breed them through a farm and then you eat it. There also you can control the food. But what will you do with this stray pig which eats all the other nonsense? So therefore, lot of farmers, both in flora, fauna, okay, they have identified this species. For example, Kane fish, which comes in, it's a marine fish, which comes in the month of July. It comes to Udupi coast, that Malpe coast for breeding. So the fishermen in Malpe, especially our Manorama Madhuraj and even our Shobha Karandlaje comes from that place. They represent Chikmagalur. All those fisherwomen, they have conserved that Kane fish and they have kept it in that marine sanctuary. That means it's a saltwater fish. You can't keep it fresh water, they will be killed. So in the sea itself, they have made a cage sort of thing. A small cage is, especially you go to marine fisheries, we have this cage culture concept. That means within the sea only, you put a cage, all those marine fishes come there and they breed, and they are not allowed to go outside. But they can have the marine environment and all that. And that's how it is done. This has been done by farmers, which is done today by our CMFRA, Central Marine Fishery Research Institute. We have a substation at Veraval in Gujarat. I happen to go to Veraval, and then farmers are doing this. They are preserving our species, both squid, Kane fish, so many of these fish. For example, how many of you have seen the electric eel? And many of you might not have seen some species which are locally adapted, and our fishermen are the ones who conserve it. And of course, that will be helped further by our CMFRA, the Central Marine Fishery Research Institute. My student one, Muhammad Koya, is there. That fellow is in Veraval Research Station, and he does this job. It is there. Plenty of. See, today every ICR institute, it is plant, horticulture, or anything. I told you, Siddu jackfruit and Kamalam has been developed by farmers. They identified it. IAHR only helped to conserve it. Similarly, fisheries, I gave you the example. Similarly, in forest species, especially the Indian Institute of Forest Management, IIFM, which is at Dehradun. Oh my God. All farmers only, the tribal farmers of Dehradun, where Dehradun is a scheduled tribe district. Scheduled tribe are all our tribes. Scheduled tribe is not a caste, it is a region. So they are the people who conserve this species, especially our Himalayan valley, Patanjali, then our Kotakal Vaidyashala, all those traditional Nambudris, along with those farmers, they have conserved the species. Thank you.
Okay. And how can collaboration between farmers, researchers, and policy makers be strengthened to enhance the participatory germplasm conservation?
Yeah, today you see Dr. Kannayan, he was the Vice Chancellor of TNAU, was our head biodiversity, And now one, I forgot his name, Dr. Kini, some Damodar Kini, he was also my colleague at IRA. He's a professor of genetics. He heads the biodiversity board. It's headed by a very competent plant breeder who does all this policy. I told you Biodiversity Act 2005, the PPVA, FRA Act. I've described so many acts. All these are, the policy makers have made. Obviously, you will have the Minister of Environment and Forest. Who is the Minister for Environment and Forest? Government of India? Just see that. I forgot the name. My students will tell. Puttu, who is the Minister of Environment and Forest? Some Vaishnav? No. Vaishnav is Railway Minister. There's one more. Dharmendra Pradhan? No. Just see. You do it. Okay. Bhupendra Yadav is the Minister of Environment and Forest sitting in the Modi government. And we have this Professor D. Kini, who is a professor at IRI. He heads the Biodiversity Act. And all the directors of ICR institutes and vice chancellors are the board members of that. They will be electing and bringing policy and guiding all this, even in the case of forest, JFM, Joint Forest Management, all the IFS officers of this country are leading that in the forest. So the Forest Act, so the minister sitting there. Earlier, we had another minister. What is his name? He was in the Congress government. That somebody was there. So they won't give you environmental clearance at all. See, suppose if somebody wants to encroach a forest and develop a resort, let us say Prestige Group Resort, they're going to put a lot of objections. You will not get environmental clearance. Similarly, all those things are in place. It is only because some germplasm is untouched. We don't know what is there. See, for example, why are we interested in the Northeast region? Mizoram, Manipur, Meghalaya, Assam, Nagaland. Why are we interested? I am telling you, ICR is telling, don't touch that area. Even if you feed all those people free of cost, there may be some useful germplasm which are highly climate sensitive, low glycemic index, highly disease resistant, and we can do it. So therefore, medicinal value crops, okay, for example, you have the CMAP, Central Institute for Medicinal and Aromatic Plants. Both the CSIR has, and even ICR also has a station in Gujarat. Okay, we have the Indian Institute of Medicinal and Aromatic Crops. Okay, it is there situated at Anand, Gujarat. So all these people are sitting and they are doing research, conservation, identification, policy planning. They are on the boards of various committees, and therefore this particular topic has gained importance not because I wanted to speak, because this is a nationally and internationally important topic. It's a very high value topic. So I thought why agriinformation.com and my stakeholders should not be benefited out of this. So that was the onus by which it started. Thank you.
Okay. And what tools or resources are available to assist farmers in documenting and sharing their germplasm conservation efforts?
Yeah, see, some tools like, see, farmers cannot do DNA fingerprinting. Okay. So once when they come out with a variety, it is the plant breeder or the biotechnologist person who sits at IHR biotechnology division or somebody. There are so many known biotechnology labs. Their first job is to do DNA fingerprinting to character. You say we, the horticulture breeders and other breeders will say the DUS data. DUS means distinctiveness, uniqueness, and specificity. It is also called the passport data of any germplasm. Just like you and me have a passport where all our details are there. V.K. Jairaghavan Rao, Indian, Karnataka, okay, age 61, whatever. Like that, each variety, kamalam fruit, dragon fruit, okay, high glycemic bajra. So the passport data is generated, it is documented, and you will have both in situ and ex situ. If it is a microorganism, okay, the database and the DUS data will be at Pune. They preserve all the microorganisms, which is very good. If oil spillage is there, which is the organism to do it. Suppose, we talk about probiotic curd and all that, probiotic juices. So which are those organisms? They're all patented, classified, okay? They all have copyrights. You cannot take them like that. And they're preserved in one place. The culture is preserved or the seed is preserved. And all these things are there. And then we have also developed hotspots. Hotspots means what is useful. For example, which is the potato hotspot? Shimla. That's why the CPRA Shimla is situated in Shimla. Central Potato Research is not a very high altitude. We have got the germplasm of Kufri Jyoti, Kufri Kuber, and many other local potato varieties are there. Similarly, we have a station at Ooty, CPRA Ooty. That is a substation for Ooty where seed production will occur in the Rabi season. For example, the sugarcane germplasm. You will all be shocked. The main sugarcane breeding institute is in Coimbatore. We have a substation in Karnal. Why we have in Karnal? Now you should know this. I'm telling you. Because the off-season flowering, okay, in the cold winters, the sugarcane will flower in Karnal. Therefore, they put that station there. One of my friends, Dr. Randeep Singh, was an ADG, who used to be the head of the extension department. So they use it for breeding purpose. So therefore, India, gentlemen, you name any ICR institute, you name any substation, it has a purpose. It is not purposeless. So therefore, government effort, institution effort, NGO, FPO, CBBO, farmers, if all unite together, we have already made India a #1 country in the highest diversity of languages, highest diversity of crops, higher. Yesterday I saw in a WhatsApp, the best cheese in the world is produced in India, not in Sweden. Please understand this. So I am very proud, Mera Bharat Mahan, and tomorrow we are the people who are going to supply the germplasm to the whole world and let them go and suffer because of monocropping, only maize, only wheat. And it doesn't matter, I am not against, but India will still emerge as a very, very important self-sustaining country in germplasm. That is our interest. Thank you.
Okay. Are there specific training programs or educational initiatives aimed at empowering farmers in the effective conservation of germplasm?
Yeah. This is a good question. Obviously, IAHR does some program for exotic vegetables. Okay, then NBPGR has a series of programs. You can go to the website. They have some 10, 15 substations. We have one in Hyderabad. Okay, and then we have the CMAP, the Central Institute of Medicine and Aromatic Crops. We have that is from the CSIR, and we have one from the ICR as well. These people keep conducting programs throughout the year. Okay, you can log in and register and get yourself trained. And farmers who are interested to do this sort of germplasm conservation activity, we can even customize a program and arrange them things, and we can also get it sponsored for them. All things are available.
Okay. Okay, sir. So now we have come to end of question round. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we'd like to thank you for a very detailed presentation and answering all the questions in depth as every time and also as always. And we also like to thank all the participants for joining this meeting. The meeting will now be closed. And I wish everyone from agricultureinformation.com very happy and prosperous New Year ahead. The meeting will now be closed.
Thank you, Rajni ma'am. I wish agriinformation.com a very big success in the coming year, and we hope to collaborate, synchronize, and converge. Thank you. So nice of you there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Wish you
I
also
leave the
the
meeting.
same.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.